Welcome everybody to our webinar today, where we are going to find out everything you need to know about buying in Spain. I can't wait to find out more about living in this fantastic place. We've got some fantastic experts with us today, which we're going to delve into all of the detail of the questions that you guys have kindly submitted ahead of time. We've got them all on a list. We'll do our best to get through as many as possible, but do please feel free to jump on as well live and ask any questions that you might have, and we'll do our best to cover them all off. But thank you so much everybody for joining to find out more about buying in Spain. So before we get started, I'll go around the screen and ask everybody to give a bit of an introduction of who they are, and also I'd like to know, what do you love about living in Spain? So I will start with you guys. I think Chris and Cristian, over to you.
Yeah, good evening everyone. Thanks for joining us. Cristian and I have been relocated here to Spain 20 years ago. Actually, Cristian wasn't born then, he was born here, so he's a proper Spanish boy here. And yeah, we've been in the property business for 20 years, giving everyone advice on relocating or buying a second home. What we like about Spain is the climate, outdoor pursuits, it's a great place to live, and pace of life and everything, and the sunshine and everything else. We come from Newcastle, so it used to snow there in the summer, so it's a lot better here. So yeah, looking forward to sharing this evening.
Great, thank you very much. Brett, over to yourself.
So I've been here 22 years with Blevins Franks, and I provide cross-border tax and estate planning and investment advice to British expatriates who are either looking to move to Spain or already living here. And I think what I like about here is the same: the weather, the culture. It's just, I find it very safe, yeah, it's just an enjoyable place to live.
Great, thank you very much, Brett. Kevin, over to yourself.
Good evening, everyone. So I'm Kevin Monger, and I'm one of the founders of Mortgage Direct. I founded the business with my wife, Catherine, back in 2006. We moved over in 2005, so we've been here nearly 19 years now. We've got two lovely daughters who have been born here and have grown up. I'm actually in Valencia city as we speak, and this is where I live. It's a fantastic city. I love Spain, or we love Spain as a family. It's a great, great country. We love the culture, the eating hours, the food. I guess we still miss the UK. We didn't leave there because we didn't like it, but we're absolutely very happy that we've spent the last 20 years here and will remain here. We've got no desire to go and live back in the UK. It's a fantastic country, as everyone knows that visits. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much. And Jonathan, over to you.
Yes, thank you. Good evening, everyone. Welcome. My name's Jonathan. I'm a Lumon currency specialist. I've worked for Lumon for 14 of 24 years of trading. So Lumon are an international payments provider, Spanish property currency specialist, assisting clients moving money in and out of Spain and all over the world. So what do I love about Spain? Well, I don't actually live there. I'm broadcasting from the UK today, London, but I think we got up to about 15, 16 degrees here. So that probably tells you one of the things I'd love to have in Spain, the weather, obviously, and a big fan of paella. My dad's actually got a property in Murcia, so I try and get out there when I can. So thank you very much for joining us. One of the things I like to do in these polls is just find out a little bit more actually about our audience. So you should see on the screen now a poll just in terms of when you might begin to look at property in Spain. You might be there now, you might be overlooking later in the year. We all know buying an overseas property doesn't happen overnight. So just to ensure we're getting you as much relevant information as possible, it is helpful for us to understand some of these timescales. Just helps us to run through some of the different options that could be available to you. Typically buying a Spanish property can take anywhere from a few weeks to a few months. So yeah, depending on those timescales, there could be different options available to you. So thank you very much, everyone who's responding. That's a very good response rate. So I'm just going to close that poll now and just launch one more, the final poll. And it's just really, again, in terms of timescales, but more to do with finances. Certainly when we're talking about foreign exchange, the timescales are quite important. Lumon actually offer a number of contract options to help lock in an exchange rate at different times in the process, which can really help with understanding your budget. When you're looking at buying a foreign property, that could be one of the trickier things, is the currency element. You don't actually know what the property is going to cost you until you've bought the currency, and leaving it all to the last minute, if the rate's gone against you, you could find things a bit more expensive. So thank you very much, everyone who has responded there. That's brilliant. And I'll pass back to Nicky. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you very much. So I'm Nicky, MD at Fine&Country, delighted to host this webinar. So I'm going to go straight into the questions now, because I'm in the UK and not in Spain, so I haven't got anything to add around how fantastic Spain is, which is why I'm looking forward to hearing all about it. So I'll go to yourself, Chris and Cristian first, I think, just to find out a bit more about the buying process, what's involved with buying in Spain, and also where to start, really.
Yeah, I mean, normally we engage with any prospective buyer, normally in a Zoom meeting, we get to know our clients more, listen, find out exactly what they're looking for, location, budget, and so on. We then compile a list of potential properties, and we send them to them and get some feedback. And we always say to people, come out to the area first and have a look around, get a feel for the area. Then we can start focusing on more of the property in that particular area. And you start looking about local amenities that might cover their lifestyle, what they want, outdoor pursuits. It could be tennis, it could be horse riding, it could be, marina lifestyles, or lots of different things, walking and so on. So we just get a feel for things, and we put an agenda together, and we get people to come out, and then we go around and show them the area with a selection of properties within their specification, take their feedback, listen. Maybe we have to re-engage with them as far as the journey and look at other things as well. And sometimes it's not always about the first time. It's maybe just doing that initial fact-finding mission for them to want to come back out again the second or third time, where they start focusing on what location, where they want to be, and so on, and pinpointing where the properties are. Sometimes you get lucky, you can find that on the first occasion, but normally it may take more than one visit. And what we're trying to do here is instill trust with our prospective buyer, so they feel comfortable with us as an organisation. We're a family business. We hold our clients' hands, take them through the whole procedure. So when we engage with someone and we find a property, we will negotiate the offer price, which is agreed, and normally they will reserve the property. Subject to due diligence, we would always recommend an independent lawyer for them to check the legal aspects of the property. And then from that reservation contract, normally maybe 4 weeks later, we would proceed to a legally binding private purchase contract, where we would pay the balance of a 10% deposit with a defined date on there for them to go to notary completion. Normally, the buying procedure here is maybe 12 weeks. It can be longer, it can be shorter, but we then facilitate with them our currency experts and also the taxation aspects, and applying for their NIE number, which need a fiscal number here to purchase a property in Spain. So yeah, we cover all of that over a period of time. I'm just discussing that over 60 seconds, but it's a drawn out procedure, and we try and make our prospective buyers as knowledgeable as possible about what they're embarking on. So that's really what it is.
And as a buyer, do I come to you, and do we have a contract together, or do we work until you find a property? Do I have to register with lots of different agents, or can I just work with yourselves?
I've got over 20 years worth of knowledge here, local expert knowledge, and I don't perceive to think I know everything, but I'm fairly well familiar with the market, and it's about making sure that we keep our clients away from the problems, and sharing with them the legal aspects of buying the property, the land status, where they're buying the property, you know, is it rustic land, is it urbano land, do they have habitation certificates and so on. We have associated offices, we deal with lots of like-minded people, other agents. So we act as property finders on behalf of our clients. We normally get a mandate signed by our clients who are very happy for us to investigate the market, find the best properties available in the area so we can actually show them. And we share properties with other like-minded agents who we've trusted and dealt with over the period of time. So we'll hold their hands, and so we can organise everything really,
Right.
and you know, take it from there.
Sounds good. And what taxes and fees do we need to pay as buyers, and does that change with different budgets?
Well, there's two aspects of this. If you buy a resale property here in Spain, the biggest cost is the property transfer tax, the registration tax, which is 10%. You've also got notary, administration, lawyers fees. So we talk in general between 12 and 13% if you decide to take a mortgage as well through our mortgage advisors. There's maybe a little bit more to take into consideration. So anything from 12.5% to 14% that we would say to put to one side is additional costs on top of the purchase price.
Great, thank you. And what surveys and checks are typically done on a purchase?
We always recommend to get a structural surveyor's report done on a resale property, and we always put that in, enclose that in a reservation contract subject to a satisfactory structural surveyor's report. Also, a reservation contract would stipulate if there was a legal reason why somebody couldn't proceed, they would be refunded the deposit. One thing I forgot to mention before, if somebody buys a new build property, they have to pay EVA on that, which is 10% tax, but they also have to pay a 1.5% registration tax on registering the property. So on a new build, it's slightly more, it's about 14 to 15% on average to put to one side, as opposed to maybe 13.5 or whatever is additional costs on a resale property.
Okay, that's interesting. Thank you. I'm going to go over to Kevin now with a couple of questions. And Kevin, why would we, as a buyer, look to use a mortgage advisor like yourself and not go directly to the banks? Oh, you're on mute somehow. We can't hear you, Kevin, or is it just me?
Beg your pardon. Am I on?
There we go.
Okay, sorry about that. There's a number of different reasons why clients really should think serious about using a mortgage broker. I mean, the thing that they look for is quality and service from us. You know, we've got the experience of how to deal with the banks. We know which banks to go with. So when we're basically deciding on the banks, we have a network of different branches within the different banks that we use. It would be incredibly difficult for somebody that's coming to Spain and doesn't have that knowledge to then work out which bank they should be using, which branch they should be using, who speaks their language. We're a multilingual team. You know, I was looking at this before the webinar. We've got 100 years of experience, combined experience in the team. So we really do know what we're doing. So that's really, in a nutshell, why you should come to a broker, to save yourself the time, a hassle. You know, which bank would you choose? I mean, we automatically know. We speak to the client, we find out what their profile is, what they're looking for, what their objectives are, and then we identify the banks. You know, we can do it instantly. We know exactly where we need to go, what nationality are there, what tax returns are they going to have, documentation, where should we present it to get the objective, you know, satisfied, and then the banks themselves offer us preferential terms and conditions. The service is preferential. For example, one of the main, probably I'd say the largest lender for non-resident clients. We're in a very kind of small group that they call top brokers. So we have a specialist department that deals specifically for our clients, and another kind of, I think there's about 10 of us, like I said, top brokers, and that department looks after all of our clients exclusively. But the speed is there. Those brokers, or sorry, those historias, the people that are processing the mortgages for the banks, they have the direct line of communication with the risk analysts. So you just don't get that. If you walk into a branch and say, "Hi, I'm looking for a mortgage," you don't know what you're going to get, to be honest.
Absolutely, brilliant, thank you. And what would you say are some of the, I guess, common pitfalls, or what are the mistakes that you typically see buyers make that you would advise people to preempt and not make?
Well, one of the kind of most typical, I suppose, is one that you can't quite understand when you're here in the role of a mortgage broker, and you hear people, they come to us all the time and they say, "Oh, I put a deposit down." And you think, why on earth have you put a deposit down, which is going to be a large sum of money for people? You know, the house purchase is the largest kind of purchase that most people have, and they've gone and paid their 10%. And then they come to you for a conversation about the mortgage, and you think, why on earth have you not come to us before you pay? They do it for different reasons. They feel they're under pressure, or they come off the plane and they get kind of dazzled by the sun and looking at these beautiful properties and imagining what a lovely lifestyle they're going to have when they're over here, and then they go, "Oh, let's put the 10% down now then." And you think, oh my God, yeah, you just wouldn't do that if you had your sensible hat on, would you? I mean, it's just crazy, really.
And anything else, or is that really the main one that you see?
I think, well, apart from obviously our business, we're in the financial services, so it makes absolute sense that they come to us, talk about the mortgage, what they can borrow, and then that will allow them to kind of talk to their real estate agent. What kind of properties should we be looking at? Because it's a big mistake not only to pay their deposit, but to come here and spend days and days looking at properties which are beyond their reach. So it's all kind of linked to that. Make sure you speak to us before you come over. That's the ideal scenario. And then when you come over, you can speak to the estate agent before. Tell them what your budget is, what kind of properties you're going to be looking for. They will have had a conversation with us. We can tell them about the pitfalls, buying rustic land. There's less banks that will lend to them if they're buying on rustic land. Their ages, you get some people that come over, they're older clients, and they're very restricted in which banks they can actually work with. So the unfortunate scenarios we have are people that don't talk to us, and they come over, and we can tell them, "We're very sorry, but we can't help you. You aren't going to even qualify for a mortgage, let alone a restricted amount." So we just advise people strongly to speak to a broker before they get on the plane and come over.
Excellent, thank you. And what's a typical interest rate that you guys that buyers would be looking for, and how does that compare to the bank?
The difference is, well, between us and the bank, I'd say there's probably between 0.5% and 1% difference. It can be even more than that. The way that the banks work in Spain is quite unusual, in that branches have a certain flexibility in what they can offer. So you might get a branch that doesn't do very many mortgages that will offer a client a very low rate because they want the business, they're desperate for the business. You also get branches who their interest rates are very high, and it's because perhaps the director of the branch wants to make some more profit for the branch, and so on and so forth. So it is very difficult for a foreigner coming over to kind of understand how the system works and where they're going to get the best interest rates. We spend a lot of time in meetings with commercial directors, talking to the banks. We're always speaking to the banks, as you would expect, and we're always trying to negotiate better terms. So with a lot of the top banks, we have specific conditions which we can offer to our clients. And then when we get clients who I would say are a very, very high quality profile, or there's a reason why the bank would like to lend to them, we can then negotiate those rates down further. So I always believe that a broker in Spain is doing kind of more of a broking job than perhaps, well, definitely than a broker in the UK. Why is that? Well, it's because they have the European Mortgage Directive, which was introduced in 2018. In the UK, they adopted these rules for the letter, and it means that if you walk into a branch of a UK bank, you get offered exactly the same products, no matter who you are. Here in Spain, it's completely the opposite. The Spanish banks didn't really adopt these rules. They should have, but they don't. And it means that there's a lot of flexibility. And of course, we're on top of that as a broker. We make sure that we offer the very best possible terms to our clients. Otherwise, we're not going to win their business. In terms of the actual rates themselves, I would say at the moment, somewhere between 3 and 4.5% is the kind of what you can offer to a non-resident. If it's a fiscal resident, I mean, I'm sure that we've got some people participating or listening in on the webinar that might be actually fiscal residents already. For them, it's somewhere between 2.5 and say 3.5%. So again, I would always recommend that you speak to a broker. At the very least, we can give you an idea of what to expect, what kind of interest rates, and we know for a fact that we're offering the best service and the best rates.
Brilliant, thank you very much. So now let's talk tax, and Brett, I'll come to you. If you could just give us an overview of the rules really that determine your tax residence and the implications of becoming a tax resident in Spain.
Yes, Nicky, someone becomes a tax resident in Spain if they meet one of the 3 following conditions. Condition number 1 would be if you spend more than 183 days in Spain in a tax year, and a tax year in Spain runs from the 1st of January to the 31st December. So if you spend more than 183 days here, you become a tax resident. The second is if your center of economic interest is in Spain, i.e. you're working here, or the majority of your assets are here. If that's the case, then you become a tax resident of Spain. And the third one is called the center of vital interest. And that's if, for example, you're married and your husband or wife is working here and living here, or perhaps you've got children that are under 16 who are in school here, then it will be assumed that you are a tax resident of Spain. And if you meet any of those 3 conditions and you are a tax resident of Spain, then that means you're liable to tax on your worldwide assets in Spain. So you've got income tax, capital gains tax, wealth tax, Spanish inheritance tax, and that doesn't apply just to Spanish assets, that's on your worldwide assets.
Right, interesting. And is that, there's a question here about UK pensions. I mean, is that included in that as well?
It is. So if you're a tax resident of Spain, then there are a couple of exceptions, but on the whole, any pension income that you're taking, whether those pensions are in the UK, will be liable to tax in Spain. And people that are looking to come to Spain to live, they need to give some careful thinking about this because, for example, when you take out the pension cash lump sum from a UK pension, which is tax-free for UK tax residents, it's actually liable to tax in Spain. So what you wouldn't want to do is come and live here, go to take the pension cash lump sum and find out that it's liable to income tax here. There's 17 autonomous regions in Spain, so each region of Spain has its variations on income tax. But I think everyone here is talking about the Valencia area at the moment, and in that region, income tax starts at 18.5%, but can be as high as 54%. So imagine having that pension cash lump sum only to find out it's not tax-free, but it could be taxed as much as 54% on it.
So it sounds like people should start planning financially before they move to Spain to understand the implications and what's going to happen and how best to manage that money. Sounds like you're the right person to speak to then.
One of the right people, maybe. So, I mean, what we got to bear in mind is if you're living in the UK and you're looking to move to Spain to purchase property, but with the intention of coming over here to live longer term, and I think the more notice that we've got in looking at your situation, minimizing the taxes before you move to Spain, and coming up with a plan so that you can minimize your tax when you're living in Spain. On paper, Spain looks like quite a high tax country, but actually, for the majority of our clients, they pay less tax here in Spain than what they would do if they were living in the UK. So the more notice, I mean, yesterday someone contacted me and they said they're moving to Spain in 5 years. I would say that's quite excessive. 2-3 years is more than enough. But for some people, they literally come over here, buy a property, become tax resident, and the time frame is only a couple of months. So the more notice, the better. But whatever time you've got, it's definitely worth sitting down and looking at your situation.
Great, I think that's really good advice. Thank you very much, Brett. And Jonathan, we'll come to you. Why should a buyer use a broker like yourselves over a local bank in the UK or in Spain?
Okay, thank you very much, Nicky. Well, the main answer to that question, unsurprisingly, some people might second guess me here, would be exchange rates. So Lumon Currency Specialist One of the main reasons, sort of headline reasons for using us would be exchange rates. We can demonstrate savings against the banks and other options out there. So of course, getting a better rate is going to mean your property is a little bit cheaper. It's not just for the purchase, of course. You want to be thinking about living costs for the future, or unexpected costs, or you might be bringing over some of that pension cash and you want to get a good rate for it. So yes, we can demonstrate savings, as I say, against other options, competitive, excellent rates. And yes, getting that is obviously very beneficial. How we're able to do that is really the volume of currency that we're trading on. Often a lot of banks will have set rates that they have to quote clients on either certain amounts or just by standard on your bank account. And however nice they are, the person you're talking to in that bank might not have any real control over that rate. It's set at head office and that's that. Whereas a currency broker, currency specialist like ourselves, we buy currency from a number of different options. Myself, Jonathan, I'm actually on the front line dealing with clients, and we have a certain amount of flexibility in the prices we can buy and sell at. So it does give us scope to sort of negotiate slightly better prices where needed. So yeah, that's clearly good. You can save a bit of money. But there's other benefits. Certainly what I'd highlight is the wallet functionality. So once a client is registered, they get immediate access to a euro wallet. By the way, this isn't just if you're buying with sterling to euro. If you're buying anywhere in the world, America, Australia, New Zealand, bringing money into Europe, into Spain, we can set you up with a wallet in your local currency, whatever that might be, and then help to convert it into euros. So you get immediate access to a euro wallet, and then you can use that wallet. I'll say there's two main things from this wallet that it's going to help you with. Number one is third-party payments, so paying directly to the solicitor or the agent. Typically in Spain, you're going to have a reservation fee to take it off the market early on in the process. So we can very simply set that payment up and pay direct, as I say, to that third party. And that's going to be a bit easier than moving the money from your Spanish bank or any other bank account. Because basically with us, if we've got the euros in the wallet, you just send us an email. We've got a very dedicated specialist payments team. They take care of everything. We've got local bank accounts in Spain, and the money's there in a matter of hours, within 24 hours or so. And so it's very easy for you to organise that through us, rather than, particularly on, say, larger amounts, if you've got that in the Spanish bank, to then get it to the solicitor, you might have to book an appointment with the bank. There might only be certain days of the week that they're open. There might be limits of what you can move. There are some caveats to that. Some Spanish completions will actually need the money to come from your own Spanish bank. That's what actually happened with my dad when he bought. We weren't able to use our company, unsurprisingly, and yes, he wasn't able to send it direct to the solicitor. It had to go through his personal account over there, which is fine. We can pay it to your own bank, but sometimes it's easier to cut out that middleman. The second benefit of this wallet, Nicky and everyone watching, is that you can actually use it to hold currency at a good rate. So pretty good example today, we've had the Bank of England interest rate decision. There's not as many people voting for an interest rate hike in the UK, so sterling's come down almost 0.5% on the day. Doesn't sound like a huge amount, but if you're buying £100,000 worth of euros, you're actually getting 500 euros less after this decision. So some of my clients who maybe aren't quite at completion stage, but they've certainly agreed to buy a property in Spain, they were buying their euros before this decision. By the way, some people held on and are getting a little bit less. Hopefully it will go back. We can't always predict the market, but it's a good example of the volatility. So they were able to buy before this decision, lock in their rate, hold it in the wallet, and then even though the rates dropped, they know exactly what their budget is and what they're going to actually ultimately spend to purchase the property, which is very important because, as I said earlier on, the last thing you want to do is agree to spend this huge amount of money and then find something surprising happens on exchange rates, it drops, and all of a sudden you might have to find thousands of extra pounds. So yeah, key benefits over the banks, it's better rates, and it's the ability to sort of lock in and plan your payments with a bit more expertise.
And is there a cost to open that account or the wallet that you mentioned?
No, not at all. It's extremely easy. You can just fill in a form online, or you can have a quick call with one of our team. Within minutes, you've got a trading facility set up, so it's totally free of charge. And then you have instant access to that wallet and can use that as it goes. How we make money as a business, it's on the difference between our buying and our selling rates, but there's no additional fees, costs or charges for sort of transfers to bank accounts or talking to me. You know, it's not like, say, a solicitor or an accountant where you get a bill at the end. Our fee, if you like, how we make money, it's all built into the rate, but the price that we quote you is a final price and there's nothing additional added on top. So it's very transparent and clear, and every cent of what you've purchased in that wallet, that is your money, and whatever you ask us to send, that is what will be received at the other end in the Spanish bank.
And is there a minimum or a maximum amount?
No, not at all. I mean, we've got a different number of ways you can buy the currency. We do predominantly trade over the phone, certainly with important transactions like a property. Some clients want to actually talk to someone. We can give them updates on the market, share the latest sort of forecast, research data, you know, talk through the process. A lot of people find that very helpful, but there is an online payment option we offer. And yeah, we're happy to do a deal for a few €100 if you want to over the phone. But sometimes for people doing monthly payments and things like that, you can just do it all online. So once a client's speaking to us, we'll talk through all the different options and just really see what's going to suit them best.
Great, thank you very much. So for those listening, feel free to jump in if you've got any questions. I've got some questions here that were pre-submitted, so we'll get into some of those now. One of the questions that we had from Morag is to find out more about the implications of a golden visa on any purchase. So Chris and Cristian, I'll come to you first if that's okay, to answer that question.
Yeah, it's funny, but Morag actually, she's a client of ours. She's already been out with us, and she's coming out again next weekend with her family to second lease some properties. So she's looked around the area. So good evening, Morag. And yeah, we're here to help. As you know, we want the journey to be as pleasurable as possible. So the question you mentioned about the golden visa, the implications of that, you have to first of all, you know, purchase a property first for the golden visa, and that's the minimum of €500,000 per individual. And that would allow you to reside in Spain, as Brett mentioned earlier, for up to 183 days of the year. However, it is a very complex area, and it's not something I'm a specialist in. I don't know if Brett wants to sort of share a bit of information on that. Brett, if you want to step in there.
Yeah, I mean, since Brexit, for British people, they need to come in on a visa, and there's a few visas available, but one of those is the golden visa. So, as was said, that per person, you've got to buy a property of €500,000. So a married couple would typically buy a property for $1 million, and it gives them the ability to come and go and not stick to the 90 in every 180 days. But of course, if they do spend more than 183 days, then they become a tax resident. So for some people, they're doing this so that they can come and go, but keep below the 6 months, so that they can choose, for example, to come out for the winter months, as opposed to doing, say, October, November, December, and then having to go back because of that 190 in every 180. But for others, it's a means of becoming a resident in Spain, because you've also got the digital nomad visa and the non-lucrative visa. So they're the three main options, and certainly the golden visa is one of the more popular ones.
Brilliant, thank you. And while we're with you, Brett, question here from Warwick. Has capital gains tax been replaced by the recent September draft law on inheritance tax?
Well, I think that's actually talking about UK tax, not Spanish tax. I mean, Spain has capital gains tax and Spanish succession tax. And of course, the UK has capital gains tax and UK inheritance tax. And the rules on UK domiciles look like they're going to be changing. In Spain, you've got Spanish succession tax, and there's a liability on that between husband and wife. So it's important to be up to date with the Spanish succession taxes. But like I said earlier, there's 17 autonomous regions, each with their own rules. And certainly in Spain, there's a number of regions that have got rid of the Spanish succession tax, if that's what he means. But when it comes to capital gains tax, that's here, you know, and that's here in the UK. In fact, in the UK, they've been reducing over the last 2 years the capital gains tax allowance. It used to be 12,300 or 12,600. They've now brought it down to 3,000. So capital gains tax in both Spain and the UK is here for some time.
Okay, and a question from Johan that's on the call at the moment. Does one need to pay tax when you rent out your holiday home in Spain?
Okay, so if you buy a property in Spain to let out, and therefore, and you're, say, a resident in the UK or in Europe, then that income is liable to tax. For non-residents that are resident in another EU country, the income tax is 19% on the income. On non-EU residents, it's 24%. If you buy a property in Spain though, and it isn't your main residence, i.e. you're not a tax resident of Spain, then it's automatically assumed that it's rented out, and you pay a nominal amount of tax on that, and that's based on the value of the property, and it's 1.1% of the value is then taxable at 19 or 24%, depending on where you're resident outside of Spain.
Right, thank you very much. Question here as well from Andrew, and asking, what is Chris and Cristian's commission percentage?
Okay, well, really it will depend. First of all, the service that we provide is free to any prospective buyer. We will evaluate their situation and show them around a specific area and find the right property. If we then find the right property for them, we get paid not by the buyer, we get paid by the seller, the vendor. We already have a pre-listing agreement signed, and there's a percentage based on the format of the contract. You could have an exclusive contract with a vendor where we've got property direct exclusively, or it's on a multi-listing service. That's resale property. If it's a new build, we get paid through a developer, a builder, for our services. So yeah, it depends. It depends on the situation. But as far as an individual coming to buy a property here, the good thing about property experts here, one thing I want to share with you, we're both qualified and registered here in Spain and indemnified as far as regulated, property experts. We've been vetted, and we'll look after our clients' best interests. So the most important thing is when we're listing properties, when we know our customer, our vendor, we know about the property, we agree a price for sale within that market range as far as the type of property and so on. We know a bit about the vendor, so when we take our prospective clients, we've got a full history of the property, the legal aspects of it to make sure it's fully regulated and it's legal and everything else. It's got all the relevant paperwork in place. Then we can negotiate the property price, the offer price with the vendor and the buyer. That's our responsibility to try and make sure that all of the parties are very happy with the outcome, whether it be, as I say, the seller or the buyer. And the buyer will have already seen a number of properties and be able to evaluate in their opinion whether they think it's value for money or not, as far as, with relation to other properties in the area. So yeah, we obviously charge a fee, but it's predominantly from the vendor as opposed to the buyer. We don't charge a fee to the buyer. The seller, if we don't sell a property for the seller, we don't charge them a fee either. So it's all about providing a good service and making sure there's a happy outcome for everybody involved. And I must say the majority of our clients who we deal with, whether they're a seller or a buyer, are very, very happy with the service we provide. So that's where we are.
Brilliant, thank you very much. And a question for Kevin from Mario. What is the maximum that banks will lend typically?
For EU residents, fiscal payers, fiscal residents in the European Union, or Britain or some other countries as well, it's the maximum of 70%, and that's based on the purchase price or the valuation, the bank valuation, the lower of those two amounts. Some banks won't actually go up to 70% for certain nationalities. Certain countries, for example, several of the banks won't go above 60% if it's somebody from the United States, for example, or in general, some banks might have a 60% limit. But we know exactly which banks to go to in order to achieve the maximum loan to value. Again, another reason why you would always go to a broker first in order to understand what you can borrow.
Brilliant. And whilst I've got you, do mortgage brokers typically charge the client a fee, or do you take commission from the provider?
We do charge fees. I don't feel the need to justify with clients why we charge fees. I mean, we're a licensed mortgage broker. We've all got qualifications. We've got experience in the industry. We provide a professional service. You know, there's a lot of responsibility on our shoulders. Our fees are very competitive. So when we formulate our fee structure, we look at all of our competitors. The vast majority in Spain do charge. What we found is that a lot of the brokers that don't charge fees end up being overwhelmed by clients that simply don't want to pay. And we value the service we provide, and we feel that there should be a cost to that service. We do get paid a commission by the bank as well. I'm not going to lie, but the client doesn't pay any extra. So the client would pay the same amount to the bank, whether they use us or they don't use us. The only difference is the cost of our service, which, as I've said, you know, there is a benefit to the client. When we speak to a client, we send out our quotes. We compare what they would pay if they go direct to a bank and what they would pay if they use a broker like us. So we compare the product that we're going to offer to what is standard with the bank, and we can demonstrate over the course of the mortgage how much they save by coming to us and getting a lower interest rate. Plus, they save themselves all the hassle of dealing with the bank directly in the first place.
Great, thank you very much. So question next from Enya, looking for a small town with easy flying routes for summer school breaks from the UK. So Chris and Cristian, have you got any particular location recommendations?
Yeah, I mean, we cover all of Spain, but in this particular area, you know, Costa Blanca North, we're now away from two major international airports, Alicante and Valencia. And it really depends. We would listen to a client if somebody wanted to be 20 minutes, half an hour away from a major airport. Well, that's what focus would be, to find, you know, the right properties within with local amenities and so on. Do they want beachside? Do they want inland? You know, it really depends on what lifestyle pursuits they have as well. But yeah, we just listen to our client and say yes. So the answer to the question is yes. There's a number of properties available within, you know, 20 minutes or half an hour of an airport, if not less or more. But what we try to do is, in different parts of Spain, there's lots of different, you know, regions, as we mentioned, and different cultures and different amenities and so on, depending on really what people want. But locally, you know, it's all about the beach, the sea, and the sunshine. So there's plenty of that here. So it's just really focused on the budget of someone, what the budget is, you know, what they can get for the money in certain areas, and homing in on that and showing them some examples of properties.
A question from Sue for Chris and Cristian. What is the name of your company and what's the website?
Yeah, Fine&Country. Fine&Country, Costa Blanca North. Feel free to go online, fineandcountry.es. At the moment, we're covering two key areas in Spain, where we are at the moment in Costa Blanca. Got a portfolio of over 400 properties here, and then down in the Costa del Sol as well in Marbella. We've got a big, large portfolio of properties there in Marbella and surrounding areas.
Well, thank you very much. What have I got next for my next question? I quite liked this question from Lee because I hadn't heard of it before, and it turns out there was an association. So an opportunity to work in Spain under Beckham law. I did wonder if it was anything to do with David Beckham, and apparently it is. So under Beckham law or get a golden visa through property, which offers the best tax outcome? Is that one particularly for you, Brett?
I can give it a go. So, I mean, first of all, with the golden visa, just bear in mind the idea of that is that you spend up to 183 days. If you want to come here to live, that's really kind of a stepping stone. That's only going to get you to 180 days or 183 days. If you want to live here all year round, then you're going to have to come here on or come here and become a tax resident. Now, the Beckham rule really did come in when Real Madrid wanted David Beckham to play for them, and he was like, yeah, I'll do that, but I don't want to pay tax on my worldwide assets because, as I said earlier, as you're a tax resident of Spain, you're liable to tax on your worldwide assets. You know, he's got sponsorship deals, property all over the place, and the idea of paying tax on all of that kind of horrified him. So he changed the rules for him. They introduced a rule and said, right, okay, well, you can live in Spain and you just pay tax on the income that's generated in Spain. And anything that you earn outside of Spain isn't taxable. Also, just bear in mind that when it comes to income tax rates, it starts at around about 18, 19% and can go up to between 45 and 54, depending on what region of Spain you live in. With the Beckham ruling, it's a flat rate. And so for anyone that can apply for the Beckham ruling, then it's worth doing. You can apply for it for the year that you move to Spain, plus 5 years after that. So after 6 years, you either choose to leave or you become a tax resident on your worldwide assets. But there are certain conditions that have to be met. So, I mean, if I could, I would live here under the Beckham ruling, but I've been here too many years to be able to do it.
And there's a question from Andrew, which is related. If someone is wishing to live in Spain, is there a way around the golden visa or the NLV?
So if you're a UK national and you want to live in Spain, with Brexit, it was the end of the free movement of goods and services and people. You know, we can no longer move to Europe as we want. And so now to live in Spain, you have to apply for a visa. And typically, it is the golden visa or the non-lucrative visa. They are quite different. The non-lucrative visa you have to apply for whilst in the UK through a Spanish embassy, and you've got to show a number of things. You've got to show sufficient income to live here. You've got to have a clean criminal record for the last 5 years, no major medical conditions. You've got to have private medical insurance, and you have to get the certificates together and apply for it via the Spanish embassy. There's 3 Spanish embassies in the UK, Manchester, London, and in Edinburgh, I think. Once you've got the visa, you then got 3 months to come over and live here. The advantage of the golden visa is that you can buy a property here and apply for the visa in Spain. It's simpler, it's cheaper, but it's horses for courses. Some people don't want to spend, or a married couple don't want to spend $1 million on a property. They may want to spend 500, 600,000, and on that basis, then they can do that. But to live here, they're going to have to apply for the non-lucrative visa. If you're looking to spend more than $1 million on a property, or one of you applies for the visa, and then the other one comes in on the back of that as a married couple, under EU rules where you can live in the same country as your husband or wife, then you can buy the property in one person's name for 500,000 plus. So it really does depend on the person's circumstances as to which visa is the most appropriate.
Thank you. And Kevin, over to you. So there's a question from Ant. They missed your business name. It's Mortgage Direct, isn't it?
Mortgage Direct. Yeah. That's
yeah.
Right. And the website is mortgagedirectsl.com.
Brilliant. And a question from Andrew. Up to what age can you take a mortgage from?
From or to? So I would say he means
to. So I think it means what the maximum age is.
The maximum ages, yeah. So there are a couple of banks now for non-residents that will go up to age 80, but they are just 2 banks. The others, I would say the majority will go up to age 75, but there are a couple that would be 70. And once you get past age 60, they're going to be asking for proof of pension income. That's where some clients fall down because they don't have a good enough pension provision to convince the bank that they'll be able to make the repayments for the whole of the length of the term, obviously beyond retirement age.
Brilliant. Just going through these questions, there's quite a few. We will share all the details for everyone. There's a few people asking for contact details, etc. So we are recording this, and for those that registered, you'll get the recording through and confirmation of how to contact everybody on this call. So a question from Holly for Chris and Cristian. What sort of properties do you find that expats typically buy in Spain?
It really depends on where they want to be located, you know. Predominantly, you know, you get people who, you've got the cultural aspects of, you know, the capital Madrid, you've got Barcelona and Valencia, you've got the seaside resorts of, you know, Costa Blanca North all the way down to Costa del Sol. If someone's looking, predominantly it's normally a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom detached villa with a swimming pool. I mean, that's what a lot of people dream about having their own place in Spain. But it depends on the age, it depends on a number of factors, really, to be honest. Whether it's a, you know, city centre apartment, easy accessibility to all of the local amenities without having to get in a car, or it's, you know, sometimes people buying inland in the middle of vineyards, and they love walking and hiking, and they love that type of environment as well. So we've really got properties to suit everyone's needs, really. You know, it really depends, as I said, on, you know, what they're looking for. So yeah, it's all about showing people what we have. But I would say close to beaches, we've got, you know, an abundance of blue flag beaches up and down Spain. Close to marinas where people can get on and off boats and enjoy that lifestyle as well. And with lots of predominantly beautiful bars and restaurants where they can enjoy the food and the cultures and integrate with all the local communities and the fiestas we have all year round and everything else. So there's an abundance of fun here. As you know, Spain's one of the most desirable places to come and visit. I think last year we had over 88 million people visit the country. One for a holiday, maybe relocation, enjoying the culture, the rich history, you know, the beautiful beaches and everything else and so on. So we're very passionate about it because we live here. And we just like to share that with people as well when they come over, you know.
A question from Johan again for Chris and Cristian. Houses on the market appear to be on for quite a long time. Is there an average difference between the offering price and the actual selling price typically?
I think a good agent who knows their customer, there's always a reason for somebody to sell here in Spain. I mean, what we tend to find is people normally engage with us and want to live the dream. They may live that dream for a 5, 10 or 15-year period. In the past, it's always been people, you know, maybe mid-50s who are looking to come and relocate semi-permanently, live here full-time and so on. That age has come down somewhat over the last 5 to 10 years, especially with COVID, the restrictions of travel, and, you know, people wanting a bit of something else in a different country. With regards to the prices, yeah, it's all about the realignment of the market and where the market is at the moment. It will depend on the type of property someone's actually bought and wanting to sell. A lot of factors have to be taken into consideration. We haven't got the diversity of UK, for example. You know, 60 million people living there, and you've got a residential market where people are going up and down their properties. And what we have predominantly here is second homes. So people are buying them second homes, and as I say, it depends on the sector they're in. If the property's realistically priced in the first place, with market conditions, in their market conditions, we can sell properties within days of them being on the market. We always have a high, medium, and low range of property prices. So it would really depend on where that market's, where the property's sitting in that market, demand, And also, when I said to you about somebody wanting to sell property, it may be because of somebody's desire to go back to the UK, a native country. It could be ill health, it could be divorce, it could be financial reasons. There's always a reason for somebody to sell. And that potentially could have an indication of what the price is in the first place, or how flexible somebody may be on that offer of acceptance. So it's a good agent, a good property agent would know their customer and be able to engage with any prospective buyer and share that information and be able to explain the differentials of prices and so on. But there's always opportunities here. There's always a reason for somebody wanting to sell. There's always a reason for somebody wanting to buy as well and get into the right entry level of the market. So that's what.
And on that note, there's a question from Michael. They currently own a property in Mallorca. They're looking to upsize with a view to a permanent move. What steps are needed?
Well, evaluating their own situations. Do they live here full time? Is it a holiday home? Would engage them with a tax expert to, find out about their own situation from a property point of view. What they bought the property for? What is the potential gain? If there were residents here and it was their main resident, they may not have a capital gains liability to pay if they're going to buy another property. Or they could roll any potential gain onto another property they're going to purchase. If the EU non-residents, there is a tax to pay, they've got to evaluate after all of the costs what that would be, so that they know exactly what they could be coming out with from a net point of view, a net capital point of view, to put towards a new property, whether that's up or down the property there. So first of all, I would say get a valuation on the property. Get a local expert in that area to value the property, give them an indication of what costs they may have to pay from taxation costs, capital gains, agency fees and everything else, so they can get an idea of what they potentially can come out with to put towards another investment, another property investment, and so on.
Thank you. Question for Brett. Do NLV applications ever get rejected? I keep hearing of elderly expats returning due to healthcare and Spanish not being accessible. That's a question from Kim.
I do know where non-lucrative visas have been rejected, but that's because the paperwork wasn't in order when they went to the Spanish embassy. But once you've applied and you've gone through the process, so you go through the process, it's for 2 years. You renew it for 2 more years, and then you renew it again for 1 more year. Then you become a permanent resident, and so after that, there's no need to apply for the non-lucrative visa. I don't know of many people that have been living in Spain and then they get rejected.
Okay, thank you very much. So we've got the last kind of 2 minutes left, really, and we've had some really good questions. So thank you, everyone, and thank you to all of our panelists for answering them so brilliantly. I guess for these last couple of minutes, any sort of final words from you, Jonathan?
Oh, well, a big thank you to you, Nicky, for hosting, and I think you've covered some of the questions really, really well and raised the main point. I did see a couple of questions come in about people asking for our contact details. So yes, everyone signed up for the webinar will get all of the panelists' contact details so they can contact them, and anyone who's not watched it, obviously they won't know because they're not watching now, but they'll also get a chance to watch it back with a recording. So yeah, perhaps we just go around all of the panelists who've been on tonight, just to say a bit of a thank you and a last few words from each of them before we sign off.
Absolutely. Kevin, over to you.
Well, thank you for the opportunity to participate in the webinar. I think it's a really good idea, and I always enjoy participating in them, and I think we get some business from it, which is always great, but it's also good to sort of share some expert advice, hopefully so that people don't make some of the mistakes that we mentioned earlier on. So really from me, that's all. Thank you very much.
Brilliant. Thank you, Kevin. Chris and Cristian?
Yeah, we'd just love anybody who's considering buying a house, a new home in Spain, to make it as enjoyable as possible. Our advice is, make sure you're dealing with fully qualified, regulated advice from tax experts, mortgage experts, property experts, and enjoy the experience. Come over and have a look first, and and engage in, hold your hand through the whole, the procedures and everything. So yeah, look forward to seeing you sometime in the future. Yeah,
Thank you, and Brett.
Well, thank you for having me. I hope the listeners or people watching have found it of interest. The only thing I would say is that, look, if you're thinking of moving to Spain, then do make sure that you get qualified regulated advice, whether it's from a mortgage broker, currency experts, or property experts. And like ourselves, we're regulated in Spain, but we're also regulated in the UK. It is important to get good advice. You don't want to get the price of getting this wrong can be quite devastating on a tax point of view, but also on currency. We've seen changes in currency just today because of the Bank of England decision. And likewise with property, what you don't want to do is come over here and buy a property and find that it hasn't got the right licensing rules, or it's not the property that you want. So, you've got our details. If anyone's out there that wants to contact us, then please do.
Excellent, thank you. You guys are all experts in your fields, and I've really enjoyed chatting to you and finding out lots about buying in Spain. So thank you so much, and thank you to everybody for joining and for your questions. We'll send out the recording and everybody's contact details so that you can follow up accordingly. But otherwise, have a nice evening, everyone, and I wish you well with buying in Spain.
great. Good evening.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye. Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.